Hello, Rachel.
Hello, Ryan.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
I am feeling fantastic. We've reached the end of a working week, and now Babylon 5 is in our laps again.
Mm-hmm.
We're in the season 4 stride. Yes, we did get interrupted by third space for a little bit there, but I am just thrilled to be talking Babylon 5 with you.
Nah.
So how are you? You doing all right?
Yeah. I'm excited to talk about this episode.
Oh, we're talking about an episode of the show, and
Yes.
we're not alone.
No.
We've dragged somebody in, somebody who we're a fan of, but haven't had on the pod. I've done some pod stuff with this person on other things, but not on our main feed, not on our own show. We are joined by Mike from Grey Sector Pod. Hello, Mike.
Hi to both of you. How are you doing today?
Good.
Mike, could you tell us a bit about yourself and your podcast?
Yeah, so this is Mike from Grey Sector Pod, and Grey spelled Grey because Babylon 5, as we all know, was funded by the Mbryo but built by the French. Not to be confused with Grey 17 Pod, which is much more popular than us, and I haven't listened very much, but probably better than us. However, we came first. I just need to point that out. Even though we're slower, even though we released slower and we're way behind them, we did come first. We launched our pod, I think, a couple months before they did. But yeah, we're similar, but we are different podcasts. And the three of us, Sarah, Joe, and I, we just riff on episodes, just like you guys. Talk about them, have fun with them. This one's really fun. I was really glad when you invited me on and you said, let's do this one. And I said, oh, this is going to be fun.
You see these boxes here?
Right.
Pretend there's a very large dragon on the other side of the cargo hold. And if you pass this point, it will eat you.
So today we are breaking down season 4, episode 10, Racing Mars. And the DVD summary, I love these because these are different than the IMDb, and they're different than the Lurker's Guide in many cases. Tales of Insidiousness. Garibaldi becomes part of a Stop Sheridan scheme. And Franklin's mission to meet with the resistance leaders on Mars is imperiled by an alien parasite. I love that it's Franklin's mission. Like Marcus just, they didn't fucking mention him. He's just like, Marcus just doesn't exist.
He's there as a bodyguard. It's not his mission.
Shut the hell up, Marcus. We aren't even going to mention you in the description. By the way, Ivonova has a plot too.
Yeah, we don't remember the plot with the women. That doesn't get mentioned.
Oh, but
sorry.
We'll never forget Delen's sexy surprise that you'll deliver to us. So, yes, Racing Mars is just a joyous time. It's one of my go-to episodes when I think of a lighter affair for B5. Season 4 is very much a high-octane, everything bleeds into one another.
Heavy.
The tone is far more streamlined. You don't get those wackier episodes as much. You don't get Sick Transit V anymore as an episode. You don't get even Voices of Authority, which also has an all-over-the-place tone, but Racing Mars is the closest to revisiting that fun, and it is just one that brings a smile to my face every time. It is just one of those just random episodes that if you saw it on TV, you'd go, hey, this isn't one of the top 10 B5 episodes, but I'm not changing the channel either. This is just such a ball has had every time. And most people I show this to who are new fans or old just sit back and go, there's some funny quips in there. There's cool dynamics, and yeah, there's some sci-fi plots as well. Rachel, what about you? Racing Mars.
This whole episode sneaks up on me in a weird way because I always think that it's later in the season than it is, and I'm always super keen for it. I'm like, Yes, I want this. I want this now, and I want this more.
You actually discussed Racing Mars on another Babylon 5 podcast, the Last Best Babylon 5 podcast, who are renowned for being Marcus haters, and you had to step in there and defend his honor in one of his shining moments, Racing Mars.
I did, and they were basically like, he's still shit, though.
But he's good in this one.
He's okay here.
Because the show acknowledges that he's annoying.
Yeah.
That
I
is...
liked Franklin as the straight man too, Marcus.
Oh, Franklin being the straight man is there's so much to say about that. Mike, what is your overall histories, thoughts, and relationship with Racing Mars? Like you said, you were pretty keen to see that this was the one we lobbied at you to come on with, but what's your overall relationship and history with it?
I would agree with everything Rachel said. I don't love Marcus as a character. I do find him, but I love that you defended his chaste, virginal, sanctity for them knocking him. I thought it was hilarious, like you said, the dynamics. I love some of the quirky little reveals that we get into about the cover relationship between Marcus and Franklin. I just love like this episode is it's just funny. Like you said, it's not quite a one-off, but it's also definitely not critical to much of the season 4 plot. There's a little bit of stuff in there with the Sheridan, Garibaldi stuff and some of Delen's.
Setting up the Mars resistance.
Yeah. I mean, it's like setting some stuff up, but it's not like an absolutely critical episode in the season. There is a lot of fluff and a lot of fun. And, I think about the dynamic, especially, we'll get into it with Captain Jack and Marcus and Franklin at the beginning, like the first third or half of the episode or whatever that is, where they're kind of on the ship. It's just hilarious. It's just fun television.
We haven't mentioned it yet. I know Rachel hoped that we were going to avoid it, but I know everyone's screaming at the top of their lungs, especially our guest. Why are we called Yum Yum Podcast? Mike, do you actually know why we're called Yum Yum Podcast?
I've heard this story because I've listened to some episodes, and this goes back to Star Trek Discovery, right?
Yeah.
And there's a character. Now, I haven't watched any Star Trek Discovery.
A shame for you.
No, that's a blessing.
It's ending soon, so you can watch all of it. Come on, catch up.
No.
During the height of an action sequence, future Oscar winner, perhaps, or at least Oscar nominee Michelle Yeoh turns around to this character that's barely been in the show, has barely any lines of dialogue, and asks them, "Hey, do you want to help me kill the lead antagonist of the show thus far?" And this character, we don't know anything about her, but she flicks her hair back, licks her lips sexily, and says, "Yum, yum." That's the answer. And my soul left my body when that happened. We had to name the podcast after it. And I have to give it over to you, Mike. Who in this particular episode of Babylon 5 could have done that? Who could have said yum yum? In your eyes?
I think this is not even a question. I think there's a character that literally might have said those words. Captain Jack. Yum yum.
Captain
Jack.
Jack.
Like he had his little packets of food. He's just eating. Like this guy's hilarious. Like he's fantastic. He's a great character.
He's definitely a yum yum contender for me. I would also have to. It's an obvious choice. It always is, but Marcus exudes yum yum energy with every single line he has. He is chomping at the bit. It would have been one of those quips he made about them being married, or the ceremony, or any of it.
I have a third contender.
Rachel's third contender? Who? The chick with the face tattoo?
No.
Okay.
No, number 2.
Oh, number 2, him? He's a gruff guy. I'd love to hear him say it in that voice. Yum, yum.
I'm a ranger.
That's so. Well, you're a long way from Texas, son. And that ain't the right accent. Let's go.
Marcus and Franklin is the glue that holds the episode together. Racing Mars is often remembered as the beginning of a beautiful friendship between the two, even though we had Exogenesis already, the one where the parasites take over the homeless. But that's a bad episode, so we don't acknowledge that. And they didn't even get to do that much together in it. But this is all about the dynamic of the two characters as well as the actors themselves. And we praise so many of the amazing duos in this show. This show is very good with its ensemble and pairings, and many pairings that are obvious. Londo and Jakar, of course, but pairings that you don't see coming that you enjoy nonetheless. And this is one of those where I remember vividly thinking, oh, I don't know how Franklin and Marcus will interact. But then once you see it, you go, of course, that Franklin is this put-upon straight man who's miserable, and Marcus is the theater kid who's got an exuberant amount of energy and won't shut the fuck up. And it's a comedy pairing that is as old as time, but it works for a reason. It really works for a reason. Just even seeing that establishing shot of Marcus looking through the porthole and his hair's hanging down and he's just like a kid, just playing playing I Spy, and you cut to Franklin and he's just, he's the adult in the room who really doesn't want to have to be dealing with these petty things, but he's here nonetheless. Mike, for you, when it comes to these pairings in Babylon 5, there's so many of them that are beautiful to watch, but what do you think about the Franklin and Marcus relationship?
I love it. I love that they play off each other so well, and it's proof that JMS is, as we can see, we've already known this, right? That he's good at writing humor, right? But sometimes that humor can be fairly dry, and in cases like this, sometimes that humor is just about the hilarious dynamic. They are it's funny. They're playing a young married couple. They kind of act like an old married couple though, right? Like they're kind of like, they're a little bit like, as you said, Franklin's like the adult in the room and he's sort of like, oh man, do I have to keep dealing with you? Like, you're really annoying. And Marcus is like, oh, it's a new guy. I'm going to capture him. And then like, let's talk to and play with the new guy. And Franklin's like, yeah, I don't know. Like, it's just a cute, funny dynamic. And I absolutely love that when Captain Jack explains that their cover is that they're a young married couple on honeymoon. And Franklin is just like, now you got to remember, this was the 90s. Right. So the idea of like two men being married was already pretty weird and unusual, at least in the United States. Like, I remember as a teenage kid who wasn't even fully out yet, that when this got revealed as a plot twist, I was like, whoa, like that's, between that and the female Pope later in the episode, it's like, whoa, we're living in a different universe. Right. But the thing I loved about the writing, and Frasier did this too as a show. I was going to say
Frasier did this a lot as well.
Frasier did this a lot, is they referenced gay people, but it wasn't referenced disparagingly. And Franklin is not annoyed at the idea that he is in a gay couple or that's his front. Franklin just doesn't want to be married to Marcus because he's just like, oh man, do I have to be married to you? It's not about being gay,
better than you. I could do better than you.
He's like, God damn it. Like, really? You, the prissy British guy, the silly British. Oh, God. Okay. Now I have to be married to you. And he rolls his eyes and it's just funny. Like, it's just so good. And I loved at the time that it was written that way. It wasn't written, Frasier did that too, where there were gay characters. There was references to gay things. It was never written disparagingly. It was never written like being gay was bad. It was just sort of like, it was just a facet of, personality, a facet of your being, whatever. And they played a lot of humor that way too. And it's played so well, like it's written so well, and it's not in any way homophobic. I really do like it. It's a little silly. Marcus takes it a little hammy with patterns and gets a little stereotypical at times, but I found it hilarious.
But he's a theater kid. Marcus is that type of guy. He takes the bit too far every single time. That's his thing with Ivanova, with Marcus, with Garibaldi, where the lesson that Franklin goes through, the arc that Franklin goes through in season 4 is, Susan, Marcus can't be that bad. Oh, wait, actually, no, he is that bad. How could I ever have doubted you? I'm so sorry. But I totally agree with you. I thought of Frasier as well, and then obviously later on you would get shows like that would be more direct with it, like Will and Grace and stuff. But one of the things that I remember being just taken aback by when I saw it, and still am today, is the sci-fi contemporaries where we, the audience, would pair them up like, oh, it's Bashir and Garrick, where it's like clearly they're gay, but they're not going to do anything about it. Or Paris and Kim, and so on and so forth. There's so many of them. Or in Space Above and Beyond as well, which we recently went through. It's like it's our good boy Cooper and West, or this. Like, we would do that as the audience because there was clearly something there, but the show wouldn't even acknowledge the idea of it. But here it's like they acknowledge it directly. And one of the things that makes their relationship brilliant is it's been a passage of time has passed. So when we start with them, they've already got a lived-in relationship that we have not seen develop on the screen. No. But between the episodes of Marcus singing the song at him and Franklin being annoyed by that, to now where however many days or weeks later where they're playing I Spy and they just know each other's rhythms already. Boxes. Yes. Is it more boxes? Yes. Is it even more boxes? They just know how to jab at one another and how the other one's going to talk and act. And that is just such in Babylon 5, that makes their relationships grow over a slow period of time. The Marcus and Franklin one just hits off very suddenly and quickly, but as a viewer, I appreciate that so much because now we don't have to piss about watching it bloom. Now we just have the flower here and we can smell it for all the episodes that they're into. Yeah, it's beautiful. Now, Rachel, for you, this is one of your favorite episodes. You've mentioned this on the podcast before, and it's also because of the Franklin and Marcus relationship. Do you want to kind of talk about some of the points that you like about it and any of the funny moments between the two that stood out?
Oh, you've covered a lot of it already. I think the I Spy thing is great because it establishes the pattern of their relationship and the attitude that they have towards each other. Mm. And I just love how much joy Marcus gets from pissing off Franklin.
It's great writing, right? It's great show don't tell. Like JMS is showing us their dynamic and how they interact and how familiar and comfortable they are with each other, right? And how they act like people who have known each other for a few years, right? Not people who just met.
Because they've been together so intensely. Like, they've only been interacting with each other for 2 weeks while being in this high-stakes situation and these unusual contexts. So, of course, it forges a bond that's very deep and specific. And I just love how much fun their dynamic is.
Look, don't misunderstand me, all right? You're a nice guy. I like you. I respect you, but after being cooped up for 2 weeks with you, I'm about ready to... And I really hate when you do that.
I think this whole Mars plot and pairing Marcus and Franklin together really humanizes Franklin as a character even more because we're Franklin fans, but Franklin's whole entire character is very much about his ego and his arrogance and his failings, as well as his strong convictions and morals. And they had the drug addiction plotline to bring him down to earth a bit and humanize him in a way. But after the drug addiction plot, what does Franklin do? And Franklin's character is very much being a supportive friend and human rather than the doctor man. But here, it just makes me so happy to see that he's a character that's allowed to be funny. Because a lot of the humor I got was not just from Marcus, but those pained expressions and miserable looks from Richard Biggs. Him eating those bars and just how much he looks haggard from it. And you got Jack in the background being like, oh, this is lovely stroganoff. I'm loving this. And just Richard Biggs just delivering all in his face the comedy that's needed. This was really, for me, the Doctor characters are usually my favorite in science fiction shows, and Franklin has always been an on and off one, but every single rewatch, when I get to this episode, I have no doubts that Franklin's a good character because Richard Biggs just is so electric in this deadpan delivery. When Marcus is lamenting the fact of, the one time I'm a war hero and nobody knows about it. And he's bitching about that. And just the look on Franklin's face of like, okay, Frank, okay.
Yeah, that's not the point, Marcus.
There's a bigger problem.
That's not the real issue here.
And without even having looked up behind the scenes stuff, you could just tell, right? You could just tell that Jason Carter and Richard Biggs were friends in real life. You could tell that they got on extremely well. You can see that on the screen. And that's one of the things that no matter how good a writer is, that's just something you can't put on the script. You have to just luck out with actors who just have that chemistry in real life and on the screen, and they really lucked out with these two. So the biggest disappointment is that we don't get more of Biggs and Jason Carter together. Like, you just want more of them together.
I second what you say about the Franklin, the physical acting. You might even put the audio drop where you see his face and he's got that bar in front of him and he's chewing on it and he's got this look on his face and his eyes and he's like, do you want me to tell you in medical terms what's in this? And Captain Jack is like literally on the screen behind him with this little steaming stroganoff going, oh, this is really good. It's just funny. It's so funny. And, thinking back, like you said, the pairings, I'm going to go way back here, but I'm thinking back to season 1, episode 5, The Parliament of Dreams, the first episode where we got Julie Caitlin Brown as Natoth, and where Natoth and Jakar were solving crimes, trying to find the assassin, right? Like, yeah, there's just, those episodes, like you said, JMS can write it in and try and, hope that the actors will be able to deliver and give extra meat and extra 3 dimensions to the character dynamic. But like when JMS is writing this, right, he's just hoping that that's going to work out and that's going to come across on screen. And just as it turns out, these two actors just fucking hit it out of the ballpark, right? Like they take those words on the page that are well written and funny, but they just add so much to it in such a great way. It's fantastic.
Biggs has always been the guy we point to on the podcast as the actor who knew how to play their role from the very beginning. I would say, especially out of the human characters, Dr. Franklin, he's the one that he comes performance-wise fully formed. And the risk of Marcus as a character, because Marcus is a character that can be very, he can repel you because he is extra. He's a lot of a lotness. But whatever you think about Marcus as a character, it can't be denied that Jason Carter adds a certain essence to the role that makes it hard to look away. He's very charismatic and very you can tell he wants to be there, and so having that even resonate further with his character Marcus, he just wants to be there and just wants to have the last word in and just wants to have a little moan and a bitch, and Franklin doesn't want to be there and doesn't want to be going through this, is the meat of Racing Mars. There's all of these other things going on. There's a whole plot on Mars, but in a way, that stuff is irrelevant to my enjoyment. I think a lot of times, and I'm sure we've all gone through this as people who have to break down episodes or listen to people break down episodes or whatever it is, especially with science fiction TV, there's this emphasis on we need to talk about the plot. The plot is so important, or the themes or the arcs, but honestly, that stuff when it comes to Racing Mars is completely irrelevant to me, honestly. It is just about the characters hanging out. When we do get the Mars plot stuff, it's fine. It's fine. It's a oh no, they have mistaken our identities and we could get shot. I don't feel any of the genuine tension out of that because Marcus and Franklin aren't either. They're just having a laugh about it. They have their moments of being worried, but they're too busy giving each other the side eye and being like, oh, you see that over there? Marcus gives the, I already saw it, Franklin, and then they have a fight scene. Like, that stuff is one of the things that makes Racing Mars, to me, stand out, especially in season 4, where a lot of it is about the plots and the scenes.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. This one, like we said, it's not quite a canned episode or a bottle episode where nothing gets out. But it's also definitely not one of the main episodes that drives the plot forward a real long way, right? The Mars plot is, it's interesting. It moves things along just a little bit. I mean, the whole point is Franklin's trying to get out here to meet the leader of the Mars Rebellion. And of course, then he has to go off and sleep with her. But it's like, it's entertaining, but you're right. It's sort of almost inconsequential. This is sort of like much of this episode is just the Marcus and Franklin show and their funny dynamic. And they happen to meet number 2, who's Mr. Grumpy Pants. And then they meet number 1 and, she's very pretty and has her shit together. And yeah, it's just, and I love, just a quick aside, I love Marcus's co-pilot there. He is being good wingman. Like he's just like, oh, Oh, you found a restaurant? I'll stay here. You guys should go. No, you should go. You go to the restaurant. You do the thing, right? Like, Marcus knows when he needs to step away, which I really appreciate that in a character and a friend. Like when it's like you meet someone or whatever it is, and the co-pilot or the wingman sort of goes, oh, my job now is to fuck off. Like, that's what I should be doing, is fucking off. Like, I'm gonna go away and remove myself from the situation to give you guys more time. And it is funny how JMS dropped that in there too, because obviously nothing happens in this particular episode, but that's going to be coming up soon, if I remember correctly. Is Steven has this tendency, I don't know what it is, like...
In all fairness, number one flirts with him. She sees him and is like, yes, you're the guy for me. And he's very much like, oh, okay, I just tackled you into boxes.
Oh, where will I find you?
The Red Planet Hotel. For some reason, they gave you to the honeymoon suite.
Right. Fine. I'll remind you of this when we decide on custody of the children.
I want to throw it over to you, Rachel. A large thing that's remembered about the Mars plot, we have Captain Jack, of course, but Captain Jack has a keeper on him. And we've seen the show back and forth a lot. What are the Druk doing here? Like, why do they put a keeper on some random fucking dude in the Mars Resistance when their target never really becomes Earth until Crusade?
Yeah, I think... it's maybe just a little bit of, they fucked up the shadows on Mars.
That's true.
So we want to get back at them and general creating chaos. Because if the Mars resistance is less organized, then that means more bloodshed. Because we learn through this episode and future ones as well that number one is against targeting civilians. And if she wasn't there, then they would go back to doing that, most likely.
And, of course, the keepers may also be aware of Franklin and Marcus's journeys to try and reconnect with Mars and to fuck that up immediately so that there's just they're more disorganized. It's just one of those things where I also wonder if this is just JMS reminding us that this is still a plot point that exists. Like, you haven't seen a keeper in a few episodes. We put it on the Regent, but look, they're elsewhere. Remember that this is a thing we've promised to do in the show. We will follow through on this.
The galaxy.
And perhaps also it is a way of making Captain Jack go from an extremely goofy character to an almost tragic figure. And I'm sure we'll have plenty more to say about Captain Jack when we talk about that actor's performance in our Spotlight section later, but it's never been one that trick hasn't worked on me. JMS, it didn't work. I like it more so of, a keeper. That's creepy. I like those things. They're weird. But it is there's shady shit going on Mars. It definitely is it's definitely laying the groundwork for that of Mars is not only corrupted from within, but also from the outside. Obviously, there's that brilliant scene of Captain Jack just telling them how much information they don't get. And what they do get is from outsiders who tell tall tales. And that's how they look at it. What war? We heard real end of the world stuff. And I love how even he says, so who won? We did. Oh, yay. We won.
Good for us, right? Like that was a great plot point. And that was good demonstrate a little world building there on the insularity of Earth, right? Over the last year, and with President Clark, like really locking everything down, and Captain Jack being like, war? What are you talking about? The entire galaxy is like in the middle of this giant war, and humans have no idea what's going on. Like that was a really interesting point, right? It's like, holy shit.
And JMS in this episode has a series of little plots, but he ties them together with these things, such as Mars is in the dark because of this embargo that they've had on them, because they've been locked down. And then that ties directly into Ivanova's plot, where she is having to figure out how they are going to survive during this embargo, or what's another thing that we have to get past, or we have to get weapons, we have to deal with the black market, but they are afraid to deal with us because of the ramifications that could befall them if they collude with us. So even if that scene in itself with Jack is a brilliant scene that fully demonstrates the dictatorship that Earth has over Mars, but JMS doubles down on it even more and helps it connect to Ivanova's scenes, which you could argue could be put in any other episode. Like, you could slot those in any other episodes because it is a very in stasis plot. But the fact that he does have this brilliant scene with Jack talking about how Mars has gone through a similar situation earlier, and this could be your future here on Babylon 5. So when we do cut over to Ivanova being the boss that she is, it gives more weight to what is a fairly minimal story. It's 3 scenes of Ivanova dealing with this stuff, being told that she has to deal with it, then she does, and then it's over. It's not the most beefy story. It's not one that you go, oh yes, that great Ivanova plot line. Mike, I just want to ask you, I mean, Ivanova's usually a fan favorite. We all usually love Ivanova, but how do you feel about I guess the Sheridan / JMS tendency of Ivanova's the character that has to deal with some like little petty or like somewhat consequential business thing that Sheridan doesn't want to be doing?
No, it's so funny. Like, even from the beginning of season 2, right? Ivanova's the one that actually makes the station run. Like right. It's actually, shit's actually happening and fucking works because Ivanova's running it, right? Like, and in this episode, yeah, she's like, well, I'll take care of that. And Sheridan's like, I mean, it's so cute, kind of the dynamic, because you can kind of see he's sort of like, I really wanted to get rid of this fucking thing. I hope she takes it. And then he's like, we have this problem. And she's like, I'll do it. He's like, are you sure? Are you sure? You know, is it that like, I really want to get rid of this, but I'm going to pretend I don't want to get rid of it for like 5 seconds there. And she's like, no, I can take it. He's like, oh, thank God. You know, but yeah, I mean, like you said, it's kind of a minor plot. It's fairly inconsequential. It makes sense that we would address it, though, because hello, like if you're cut off from Earth, you're going to need to, like, you got to address that in universe. You can't just get everything you need, right? There needs to be some sort of back channel or like this, a subplot that explains how you're getting all this shit. Otherwise, like, we're just in Star Trek land and you're replicating it, right? Like, it doesn't make sense. So, I mean, I like it. I like that she gets shit done, as always. I mean, Ivanova is competent, and, you know, Sheridan's off wondering about oranges.
Yeah, Ivanova's God.
Yeah, Ivanova's God. Yeah, it's. I mean, she's great. You're right, though. It could have been slotted anywhere. I like that they slotted it here, though. As you said, though, it really tied with the whole Captain Jack and the Mars being sort of embargoed. Like it thematically, those work together well, and I think it was good to put this in here. I think it was the right place to slot it. It made sense.
So with the Ivanova stuff, Rachel, you particularly enjoyed when we were watching it together. You had a good giggle at how Sheridan doesn't want to take the day off, and she has to command him to go away.
Yeah, she's just like, no, this is happening. This is happening. And I love how he like tries to stick around, and he's like, asks the one question about Marcus and Franklin. She answers him, and then he tries to get more, and she shuts him down. Like, no, John, that didn't actually work. I just answered your question. Now go.
I never give up. I never give up when I know I'm right. She has that line about, you haven't had a break since then, and you've been dead once, which can be pretty tiring.
You've been declared dead at least once, and we all know how tiring that can be.
Yes.
God of Ivanova is just such a strong character.
Oh, and I love the way that she deals with all of the black market people and like threatening them, and like the dude who's like, oh, my arm hurts when it rains, and she's just like, well, it doesn't rain here, so you should spend more time on Babylon 5.
It rains in Down Below. I just want to point that out. There are spots where it keeps raining in Down Below. We talk about it.
It's misty there. Ivanova's just such a strong-willed character. Claudia Christian always is nailing it with this performance. There's this thing where I still get a hang up on this because, you know, growing up with television from this era, especially the 90s science fiction shows, I would always kind of roll my eyes at a lot of the female characters because they were usually treated like trash. They were usually, Deanna Troi didn't even know that she was the highest ranking member on the bridge at this moment because she's too stupid. And like, or, if we're lucky, maybe there's an episode where Torres remembers that she was a Marquis and she's super strong-willed. But like, a lot of the times they would throw like boring romance plots at them. Like Major Kira's a strong character, but she has like 15 boring romance plots. And what I love about Ivanova here, just this moment, she just stands there and gives them this look of, yeah, I just said all of this stuff and you're going to do it because I said it. Like, you guys could beat me up.
Or I'm going to fuck you up.
And this guy hits on her and she has this look of, whoa, he just fucking hit on me. But you know what? I'm standing my ground. I'm going to win this because I'm right.
Yeah,
I'm Ivanova.
I could fight back, but now is not the time.
The thing about Ivanova too, I've said this on the podcast, she reminds me of my sister very much. But that's the thing, Ivanova is one of those science fiction characters that reminds me of people I know. This is people I've worked with. This is people who's taught me. Like Ivanova's like a character that I can look at and see that this is a person that I've met in the real world. And that's one of the strengths of Babylon 5 is you have so many characters like that. You just have a whole cavalcade of relatable characters that have their strengths and their weaknesses. But yeah, her scene is very small and it doesn't take up too much space. But again, it's another piece in the puzzle of Ivanova is just a badass.
And a possible clue as to why Garibaldi now just shaves his head.
Oh, yeah. The whole little jab about how are you to know that would make Mr. Garibaldi's hair fall out, and all of the black market guys start giggling about that. I love how much of a nerd JMS is, where he has to explain in the show like why Garibaldi is bald now. You don't need to JMS, but you did it anyway.
Everyone's entitled to a fresh start.
You're even willing to forget about that business?
Yes, even though it did make Mr. Garibaldi's hair fall out. You had no way of knowing what was in that bottle, and that's my story, and I'm sticking to it, just in case he asks.
Rachel, we've been actually enjoying the Garibaldi Season 4 arc. We actually have been liking it and looking at it, so I just want to touch base. Garibaldi, what did you think about him here, butting heads with Sheridan?
He's a fuckwit. That's it. That sums it up for me. He's being a fuckwit, but that is a result of the manipulation from the Psi Corps. And even knowing that, I'm like, you're playing yourself, Garibaldi. And I love the way that Jerry Doyle is doing these subtle things still of like, he sort of looks like he's questioning why he's doing certain things.
He catches himself, but then he still does it anyway. And
then he's like, oh, fuck it. Like, when he grabs the woman, there's this sort of look on his face like, is this... No, this is the right thing to do.
Yeah, he's questioning why is he doing these things that he's doing. When it comes to Garibaldi's conversations with Sheridan, though, even though we know he's programmed and an asshole, but this is a part of him that's just amplified. And do you think, even knowing what the twists are, Rachel, do you think JMS does a good job at giving any sort of credence or validity to what Garibaldi is putting down at all?
Oh, I don't, but I see how you could.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's one of those cases where you have actors being honest in the character. So you have Bruce Boxleitner doesn't play it anywhere near what Garibaldi's saying, but on the paper, you could actually see how Garibaldi sees it that way with the actions Sheridan has done. But Bruce Boxleitner doesn't play it in any sort of way like that. Bruce Boxleitner is also just too damn charismatic, where you go, oh no, he's a fine man. It's Sheridan. He's too dumb to think he's Jesus.
Yeah, I like that dynamic. This is an uncomfortable part of the show for me. I don't know. It sounds like you two don't dislike it as much as I do. I have difficulty when I have two characters, both of whom I really like, and then those two characters who historically have been friends really hate each other for a while. Like, and this actually, I don't know if you've ever watched The West Wing, but this actually happened on The West Wing as well. They're the president and the chief of staff were two characters that were basically best friends. And in the middle of season 6, there's like a 10 or 15 episode stint where they just start fighting. And by the end of it, they're hating each other. Right there. And in this as well, it's like Garibaldi and Sheridan have been through years of shit together. Right. And then, Psychor fucks with him and, turns up that aspect of his personality where he's a little more paranoid, and Garibaldi just turns, as Rachel said, turns into kind of a fuckwit, and you really kind of hate him for a while here. And you're just like, but you can see his point, right? When he's like, you kind of have a Jesus complex. I mean, hello, you died and then you came back. Can it get any more messianic than that? Right? Like it's a bit like his points on paper. Like you said, Ryan, the points on paper are valid, right? Like it's like, that's not the way Sheridan's being, but you can see kind of the points of someone with that kind of personality would be in that situation, be like, we're going a little too far here, aren't we? Shouldn't I question this a little bit more?
Yeah.
And
be the guy to punch a hole through it.
Yeah, it's his response to the facts that are the problem.
Exactly. Yeah.
And he does have an emotion behind it. He tries to, my favorite exchange in it is when he does give the messianic figure all of this stuff, and Sheridan just shoots it down immediately. It's like, that's an excuse for crummy behavior. That's just false. You're just being a dickhead about it. And you're sitting there going, yes, finally someone's just saying this to Garibaldi, because everyone's been call him out. Everyone's just been sitting there going, okay, Garibaldi, you're a little bit funny.
Yeah, you're being a bit weird, but okay, you quit your job. Your reasons slightly made sense, but they don't feel right.
When I have not always been favorable towards this Garibaldi plotline, because it is a gamble to make one of your characters that people like for the most part just an out-and-out asshole for a whole season. It's like, hey, for a whole season, we're going to make this guy who is kind of the heart of the group from the beginning now the prick. And it's a gamble that I haven't enjoyed in the past. I'm enjoying it now because we're analyzing it and reviewing it, and we're looking at all of the little...
I still hate it.
Yes.
I see the validity in it. I see the reasons why JMS does it. And it's satisfying in a way, but I still am like, fuck this plot.
A part of my critique that I've had of it, and I still think this holds some weight, because JMS is a writer that's super aware of the things that he does, but he also feels like the need to justify them. You come into season 4 and he's made his character Jesus. Like, he's made Sheridan come back from the dead, and he's like this figure that is going to unite the world to do the right thing. And that's one of those critiques that is often slammed against when writers make their characters a messianic figure. And so it's like JMS has an in-the-world reason, like, no, see, it's not just that, because I have Garibaldi critiquing that as well. See, he's critiquing that.
I pointed it out, so you can't make fun of me for it.
Yes.
This is a JMS thing in his writing, though. He often points out the plot holes or the tropes or whatever.
Yeah, like, how did Kosh shake his hand if he's in an encounter suit?
in an attempt to be like, look, if I point out the giant plot hole, that means it's not a plot hole, right? It's like, I don't know if that works that way, but yeah.
It's not a hole in the wall. It's a feature.
Yes. We're actually making it a part of the narrative, and it's supposed to enrich. And I don't know, again, I just wish that Garibaldi's points had more validity within the text itself rather than us looking at it on the paper. Because again, you never have a moment of questioning Sheridan in any way, because Bruce is just so damn smiley and happy and nice, and you have these scenes
and he defends the woman that Garibaldi's basically attacking. You're never on Garibaldi's side.
No.
And it would be much more interesting if you were persuaded a little bit.
Yeah.
And it wasn't so much like it was with Night Watch, with the evil dudes that come in.
Or with Zach, even, as a character embroiled in an obvious evil, where it's like you felt bad for him, but also you knew that this guy's a bit of an idiot, and you hope they'll work out. Garibaldi is what I call the conflict plot, where you have a serialized show, and you have that one character who is going down a road that will just generate conflict. So when we meet Wade and his men, I know, I sit there and I roll my eyes going, okay, yeah, Garibaldi's going to enter the conflict plot where he's going to team up with obvious evil people and he's going to fuck over the crew, and it's just going to be that thing where it's like, now how many episodes do we have to wait for this to unravel? Because that's the thing is, we know from the very beginning of season 4 that something's wrong with Garibaldi, and you have to wait for the crew to realize that, and or for Garibaldi to fuck everything up to a degree where there's almost a point of no return. I mean, how do you feel just about that, Mike, of just Garibaldi is, in a way, the driver of conflict within this season?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, the way the conflict plot. And I think you're right. I would like it better if Sheridan had gone a little further, gotten a little more Jesus-y, and made some decisions that make us question Sheridan's character, right? And then you would see, Garibaldi's response and be like, maybe we'd still be on Sheridan's side, but it would be sort of like an 80-20, 70-30 something. Whereas the way it is, Sheridan, as you said, Bruce Boxleitner plays it so straight. Like, he obviously doesn't want to be Jesus' figure. That scene where the woman in the hallway is like, you're him, and he's like, no, please, like, no, I'm not, right? And Garibaldi's just sitting there going, obviously you are, right? And it takes that character that we like, Garibaldi, and it kind of shits on him a little bit, right? Because it makes him be the conflict dick for a while. And as like a plot arc goes throughout season 4, and as it eventually resolves somewhere near the end, I can't remember exactly where, right? And eventually they're friends again, right? It's a great sort of plot arc if you look at it on paper, but watching it is not as fun. Like, it's a little uncomfortable, right? It's just not fun.
A major void, and this isn't the show's fault at all. We all know the production reasons why, but a major void in this is they're not friends. They've always just been work colleagues at most. They've been friendly, but you always wonder. I wonder too, this was, JMS has the Bible, he plans all this stuff out. This always has felt to me like this would have been Sinclair.
Holdover. Yeah.
This would have been Sinclair, who was a religious man. Garibaldi and him were the best of friends. You felt that friendship. I always imagine, like, in a moment where Sinclair would punch Garibaldi, you, the audience, would feel conflicted about that. But when Sheridan punches Garibaldi, when Sheridan gets punched by Garibaldi, I'm sitting there going, yes, awesome. Like, and Sheridan stands up and gives his Bruce Boxleitner raspy, like, that one's for free, but next time I'm not gonna. And I don't feel conflicted about the fact that these two are physically fighting one another, but I would if it was Sinclair. And like that thing you said of, like, you could easily imagine Sinclair having this because he was a religious guy. He was a Jesuit, and Michael O'Hare carried that spiritual thing in him. But we obviously can't have that because of what we know. But I do feel this was a leftover idea for Garibaldi and Sinclair to have this conflict with each other. I've always felt that, and I think that makes it a little bit hollow because, in all honesty, I don't feel that dismayed by this because I never think of Garibaldi and Sheridan as best friends or friends. I just think of them as people who work together.
And they have a particular kind of bond because they've worked together in these kind of circumstances. But it is not a genuine and deep friendship in nearly the same stratosphere as Garibaldi and Sinclair.
Is it hilarious that we have a relationship that's been there for 2 seasons and I don't feel like they're as connected as the relationship Marcus and Franklin has in this singular episode?
Yeah. I was going to make that point.
I don't buy it. It's just a cheap excuse for crummy behavior. Bottom line is you're misusing your authority and I won't have it. You want to be mad at me? Fine, you be mad at me. But don't hurt everyone else just to get at me.
Sheridan is trying to have a day off, And Delenn is there to say, hey, you don't do that often enough. And when you do, it looks like your head's going to explode, by the way. You really don't know how to...
I love her line about, like, if you can look more unhappy, please don't tell me.
Delenn is in flirty mode in this episode. She's all cutesy and giggly, and it's nice to see that after having just come off the episode where she's all sad at the fact that she started the Earth Minbari War. It's just nice to have a bit of a break from sad, angsty, and also powerful Delenn, to just have her stand here and say, hey, we're in a relationship, and you know what we haven't done? Fuck. We haven't fucked yet. Rachel, you're a big Delenn and John shipper.
I am.
So, talk to us all about what's happening here and your thoughts on it.
So, Delenn goes up to John, finds John in the garden because he's pacing around like an angsty little bitch that he is.
I got to use the garden set again, too. It's been a while.
Yeah.
Got to get some money out of that set.
It's mandatory. And it's the couple garden because there's the little couple in the background.
Yes, you noticed
also
this.
Being canoodling.
Yes, there's a background extras that are a cute couple that are also getting intimate and kissing and holding hands. It's
aliens.
a nice little background detail.
Yeah. And I like that it's aliens because it would be so much easier for production for it to be two humans.
And they're not even in focus. They're out effects in the background. I wonder, and I don't know because we only see the back of the head of one. I would be curious if they were both aliens or it was an alien and a human. Because the woman that we see is an alien, but I don't know if we see the guy's head. I don't know. Nerds, look for it. But
so she's just like, hey, I have another ritual for us to do. And he's just like, oh, come on. Do we have to? She's just like, it's important to me. She holds out on the juicy detail until the very end, which is, it's sex, John. It's sex. But she still holds back the details so people will be listening.
Valen made this, by the way. Sinclair made this little ritual. Sinclair's a freak. Just I'm.
Is anyone surprised Sinclair is an exhibitionist and or
no? I made this rule so that my great daughter can fuck this guy that took over my job. One of the things that I really appreciate about this is I actually like. I know some people don't, but I think this is good to have. I actually like that Sheridan gets frustrated with how many religious ceremonies there are and that he does not gel 100% of the time with Minbari culture, that he does find it a bit of a hurdle to jump over because Sheridan is a character that I think needs more dirt and mud thrown on him in this show, and even if it's
perfect and tolerant of every single
even if it's
thing.
just something as inconsequential as this little kink in their relationship, and it's not even to say that he hates it, he gets over it, but he does have that another ritual. Must we do another one? And I can deeply relate to that as somebody who's grown up in a Catholic background and all that. There's so many moments of pomposity as a kid where I'm like, must we do another thing like this? And the answer is yes, Ryan. I'm like, no, I don't want to do that, but I will, I guess. And I just like that even with that happening, Delenn still relates it to his human ceremonies and his human customs that she's had to go through in their relationship. Like, it's
just
a two-way
like
street.
This thing was important to you. This thing's important to me. And yes, for your one thing, there may be 47 of mine.
No, 50.
Yeah, 50.
Because the Minbari, obviously Delenn being our main Minbari, the religious caste, there is a level where JMS almost pushes it to the extent of like, oh my god, it's got to the point of a joke of how religious the religious Minbari are, and this walks right up to that line, and I think it goes over it. I will get to the actual sex ceremony, but Mike, what do you think about this little scene here and the John Delenn relationship? I'm not too sure how you feel about how that has developed over the course of the show.
I liked the John Delenn relationship, even though it was obviously a bit predictable, even from relatively early season 2, right? We kind of knew where this was going pretty
He looked
obviously.
at her and his eyes bugged out as soon as he
It's a
saw it.
very slow burn.
It is a slow burn, though, right? It takes us 2 seasons to get to the fucking, which I don't know. As a gay man, I'm just really that long.
It takes them so much.
But you're not
It takes them longer to have their first kiss than it does from kissing to fucking, though.
But he's a widower.
And to be clear, if she wants to fuck, she has to make sure she lines up the schedules of at least 8 other religious cast members and Lanier,
including her friend,
and put them in the room, right? I thought it was hilarious. I thought the whole idea, and I didn't know the backstory about Valen being the one that made this bullshit up. That totally makes sense.
We can assume that because it's just like, well, they were a mess before Valen came in, and he gave them all of these structures and rituals.
I love ritualized, ridiculous exhibitionism. Like I didn't know. Like I knew Sinclair was like a kinky bitch. I didn't know he just transferred that to all of Minbari society, though. That's hilarious, actually, on some level.
Okay.
He fucked so hard that he corrupted their DNA. That's a plot point.
Yeah.
So, you know what? It's an obvious thing that he would do this. I'm going to say it. I'm just going to say it. The Minbari sex ritual, that has always been where I go, no, don't, no. I find it funny, but I always go, JMS, stop it. You're getting into the Star Trek. You're getting into the Star Trek territory where the alien culture has this one truly ridiculous thing that we laugh at, and it doesn't feel like it's real to me. And I get that it's funny. It's there to be funny, and I get that. But also, I just go, stop it, man. You little horny. Because JMS is horny too.
Oh, yeah. I get held up on one particular line.
Oh, yes.
Is it woohoo?
No.
Which
is an amazing line.
I love the woohoo moment. I love that Lydia is like, you ruined the sanctity of this ritual with woohoo.
Bill Murray's line delivery on woohoo is top notch.
Yeah, top notch. One of my favorite linear moments in the whole show. No, they're outside of the room. Not just to listen, but to make sure things don't go too far.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Yeah, what does that mean exactly? Are we not allowed to go? Like, what is too far exactly?
Yes.
I mean, if you got 8 people watching, I mean, even if they're on the other side of the
close the door, so they're just listening.
Anal.
But still, yeah, I was about to say, is anal too far? Like, I don't know what you straights do. What you think is kinky?
Do Minbaris have buttholes? JMS, answer that.
I thought we were going to be alone. I mean, what are they?
They're here for the ritual. While we discover one another's pleasure centers, they wait outside to pray and meditate and ensure that things do not go too far. It is our tradition.
We've all had sex. Has anyone said woo-hoo during sex?
Only if you're role-playing as Sims.
Oh.
Yeah, it's one of those lines on television that is written into television, and you're like, no one's ever done that. That's not a thing.
But would Sheridan do that? He is very corny.
He is pretty corny. That's true.
But also, like, it seems like he's slightly embarrassed that he did that. Like, that Lanier heard him do that. So it makes me wonder, is that a thing that he's just always done? Or is that him censoring himself?
Woohoo, and he fist pumps. He's a fist pumper during sex.
Oh, yeah.
That's Sheridan, and he's a spanker too. But I said that so casually.
I think Sinclair is a spanker. I don't know if Sheridan's a spanker. I'm not sure.
Sinclair fucked so hard he needed frictionless sheets. That's the type of guy he was.
Yeah, which I'm just like, how are you on the bed? You'd fall off.
But he's fucking so hard that they stay on. Somehow. I don't know. But we have to talk about it. Lanier is there. And Lanier, as we know, from thanks to JMS making it miserable for Bomumi, Lanier's like a freaky little incel that is in love with Delenn, and he wants to be with her, and she has him there to listen to her fuck the guy that she wants to be with that isn't Lanier. And that's just one of those things where it's like, I want to keep turning my eye away from incel Lanier because Bill Mumy doesn't play him like that. Like, Bill Mumy does not, but the script keeps telling us. And this is one of those moments where it's like, you can't avoid the fact that this is just another damning piece of evidence in the weird tapestry of Lanier's character. Mike, for you, what are your thoughts on Lanier?
Are you saying that you think Lanier requested, or are you saying...
No, I think it degraded him to be there, and it's just another reason why he hates their relationship.
It's just like, well, I'm a member of the religious caste,
so I have to be here.
I'm like sort of part of Dylan's family on the station, so I have to be here.
Yeah, like I wonder how does the panel get selected? Like, this is some kinky shit. Like, any variation of any way you imagine how this gets started just sounds weird, right? Like, like, how does she select the panel? Are they family members? Are they friends?
Is it just does it have to be members of her clan, or can it be any religious? Because
is this similar?
Lanier isn't from her same clan. He's just a member of the religious caste. And because she's such a powerful and respected Minbari, does that mean that she has to get people who are equally respected?
Man, what I would have killed if Naroon was one of the people there. That would have been a dream come true. Yes, Dylan. Ah, Sheridan, I heard you say woo-hoo. I would love that so much. Ah, Dylan, former Grey Council, I hear you moan. It's like, no, Naroon, shut up. But what do you think about Lanier in general and how JMS has put this angle to the character? An angle that has especially become more relevant in the real world and in media as well. This the good guy, I'm the noble man who's your friend and I'm deserving of your love. What do you think about that, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, it is. I liked Lanier as a character, and then we get into the middle and late part of season 4, right? And then in season 5, when Lanier does take a full like incel turn, and he's just like, he admits, he's in love and all this other stuff, and it just, I don't know. I feel like it was definitely unexpected for me, at least when I was first watching it, that was sort of the direction it took. I feel like there could have been we could have made the character a bit more interesting than that. But yeah. And in this case, I mean, because he's effectively her chief of staff, right? Like, that's what he's been for years. First, he's her executive assistant. And then after a while, he's like really, he's kind of like helping run shit. And she's obviously this is Grey Council and then former Grey Council member, extremely powerful in her society. I don't know. I don't know if I love what JMS did with the character. I just don't, I don't love it. I think it could have been the way Lanier started. He was a very lovable character. Now, that being said, I mean, one of the things that JMS doesn't, he does do it, but when he does it, as we've been discussed in this episode, he acknowledges it and even talks about it. Tropey stuff, right? Like, JMS doesn't want to just make everything super predictable, super tropey. I love that Ivanova didn't have 15 romances throughout the show, right? Like, she had that one episode in season 1 where the ex-boyfriend showed up, and for like 20 minutes, all of us are like, oh, Ivanova, why? He's a sweater criminal. What are you doing? Like, get rid of him, right? Like, he's terrible. Like, and she doesn't.
That you dumped him. He should stay out of your
Ivanova
life.
doesn't have a string of romances, right? It's not like we get a female character who's strong and it's not super tropey. She's not interesting because she's dating 18 different men, right? Throughout the show. With Lanier, I'm sort of like, I don't know. I mean, I guess it was a very non-tropey direction to take him. I don't remember a lot of other incels in sci-fi in the 90s.
No. I don't even now, I can't think of too many in this regard. It's definitely a talking point that has become more relevant over time, but I think, and we've talked about this, and I'm curious if you feel the same, I was just happy having a nice positive relationship between a male character and a female character that wasn't romantic. I was just happy with that. That was good enough for me.
That was good enough. It didn't need to add the extra layer.
Woo-hoo.
Mike, have you seen the film Spotlight by any chance?
I have not. Actually,
Wow.
you mentioned it in I was listening to one of your episodes and you were talking about Spotlight and how everyone loves Spotlight. And I'm like, I don't love
Oscar-winning film. Did you know Michael Keaton's in that movie?
Yeah, I'm generally a big fan of Michael Keaton, especially first Batman, because he was first Batman.
Mr. Mum himself, yeah.
Going
Michael
that far
Keaton.
back, yeah.
Got to go further back.
But I haven't seen Spotlight, no.
But are you aware of our Spotlight section on our podcast?
I am, and I am so happy who we have chosen to spotlight today. It is such an exciting spotlight.
Oh, do you watch a lot of Santa-related content?
Well, let's introduce the spotlight first. We are talking about an actor or an actress that appeared in the episode. Big role, small role, minor, recurring guest, doesn't matter. We talk about them. We go over their character, their performance, their career, any interesting pieces of trivia. And we're looking at Captain Jack himself, played by Donovan Scott. And, okay, I'm just going to come in red hot. This is the worst guest star performance we've had since season 1. I'm just calling.
No, I'm
calling it now.
I'm countering you. I'm going to counter you. I don't think the performance was that bad. I think you're mixing up the accent or lack thereof.
That's a part of the performance. That's a major part.
That's a decision that he made.
The performance and the enthusiasm of the actor, I think, was entertaining and amusing and fun. The accent or lack thereof, and I love that I'm talking about this with two Aussies, because very clearly the first sentence out of this guy's mouth, he was trying to sound what an American thinks an Australian sounds like when they haven't actually met very many Australians. That's what he was trying to sound like.
And then he's British. And then there's a whole sentence where he gives the Lita had a little vol on and all that. And he's just full American. He doesn't even do an accent for that
long.
His
his accent was a fucking train wreck. Why? Was it written in the script and then he had to do it? Like, why the accent? I don't, where did this come from?
Somebody tell me why. Somebody listening or somebody in this discussion. Tell me what relevance Captain Jack being not American had.
I used the bullshit excuse with the B5 boys that it's because he's trying to establish that something's wrong.
So he's doing an over-the-top accent. The keeper's making it. I know that. No, I wish number
and
one.
That's why it's so inconsistent.
I wish number one said, "Oh, Jack, why are you doing a funny accent?"
That would have been great.
Yeah. It would have been. It would have made it so much better. And I just now think that in my head when I watch.
Oh, blimey, number one. It's me, Captain Jack. Oh, boy. And she's like, number one, Captain Jack, are you all right there, mister? Oh,
you don't sound like yourself.
Oh, no, I sound like old Captain Jack. I'm sorry. I can't separate the performance with the accent, because the accent is the performance. Yeah. This is one of those characters where the accent is the character in a large part. And there are, and he, poor Jason Carter, he's there, he's British, he's standing next to this guy doing an accent, and they've had British and Australian people on the show before. Why can't they? Somebody out there
that they could have had that.
Somebody out there tell me why this had to happen this way.
As we were discussing just a few minutes ago, the actor who plays Naroon was born in Pasadena. The actor who plays Captain Jack was born in Chico. These are two parts of California that are, within a few hundred miles of where I am right now. Both of these actors tried to do accents. One of them succeeded.
You wouldn't believe half the stories we've heard about Babylon 5 this last year.
Such as?
Crazy things. One story had your lot coming in here with an alien fleet to take over the whole operation yourselves.
I agree. He has the enthusiasm, he has that warmth, he has that jolly quality to him, but you cannot get over the fact that every second word is a completely different voice coming out of this man.
There's no consistency whatsoever.
It is. You might have convinced me. It is true. It is just. Okay. We have to delve into this for just a second though, because I am talking to two Aussies, and honestly, I don't talk to two Aussies on a podcast ever until now. So, which part of Australia that may or may not exist was Captain Jack from in those first couple of sentences when he was Australian? I am curious because I'm not familiar.
I would say Darwin. I would say he's from Darwin.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing about Australian accents is
Is there a lot of variation? Because like England
No.
is like London's really different than Birmingham's really different than Scotland.
Here's the thing I'll say.
But it's...
We don't have the America thing where America, you can go, this person's from this place because of their accent.
No, it's more, this person's from a rich background.
We have different like societal things. So it's like bogans is a term used for the very kind of more, I guess, your redneck equivalent. But we have bogans, which is what Kath and Kim is in a way of that series. But we also have the ones of an older generation that have that slight British twang to them.
RP.
But what he's doing here is what we would call an ochre accent, which is kind of what Paul Hogan has in Crocodile Dundee, which is also
known as the broad Australian
accent, which is kind of from an older generation now. Ochre also had many slang terms that they would like to throw in there. So ochre is far more of that, put another shrimp on the barbie, mate, that type of thing, which was from people who, you know, my parents' age or older, but that isn't as strong now. That has evolved into other things. So he's doing that, and that's why I say Darwin or Northern Territory, because that's kind of an area that still very much inhabits that.
Yeah,
but is it? So it's like sort of the equivalent. If we were to do a British equivalent, it'd be like a middle class British, like a London accent, or even not a Cockney, but more. Would it be like that, like sort of a middle class?
Cockney or kind of a bit of a Northern accent going on.
Yeah, Northern. Feels more correct to me.
But he is such a strange performance in an episode that is riding that line with all of the tones. He comes in and he just throws a bomb into the scene. He is ridiculous. Marcus is a ridiculous character, but Jason Carter rides that tone so well. But then this guy's here going, "Oh, beef stroganoff. Oh, I'm eating this lovely food. Oh, don't you want some of this Insta Heats?"
It was like full Cockney at that point. I was like, "Wait a minute, what happened? Did we move from Australia to London? What happened?"
Rachel, you've looked over this actor's career, Donovan Scott, and you stumbled across a fun little revelation about the type of roles he likes to play.
Oh, no. He just fits a type. So he gets cast as Santas frequently.
He is a real-life Santa. I looked him up.
Yeah.
He still does Santa stuff when Christmas rolls around.
Well, as he gets older,
the more Santa he becomes.
The more Santa he gets. And he can grow an excellent beard.
When I found out he was Santa, I was a little bit surprised because yes, he's
rotund.
He's a big guy and he has a beard. But I looked at him here, going, I guess I need to see you as a Santa to see it, because even though he's a big guy with a beard, that isn't enough to be a Santa type. But once I have seen him, especially more recent times where he is white, silver haired and all that, I'm looking at him going, yeah, you're a Santa, aren't you? You really are. And he has played Santa Claus in so many things.
But there was a slight problem, which was when I first watched this, I'd already seen him as a Santa.
In what?
Bones.
Oh.
He's Santa Larry in Santa and the Slush.
For all the Bones heads out there, you know what Rachel's talking about. He is an iconic Santa to me in television, and for many people who are fans of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, he's very memorable. He's the Santa Claus that Charlie screams at and attacks, asking him, "Did you fuck my mum? Did you fuck my mum?" It's an iconic scene. It's one of the great scenes in It's Always Sunny, and he is that Santa. You get to hear him ask, "Is this kid retarded?" Like, even he is like, do I say that word? I'm Santa Claus. And I rewatched that scene just before this because it's been a while since I've watched it, and it is him. It's distracting. It's Captain Jack.
Oh, you're a big boy, aren't you? Is he retarded? I got this one. So, son, what would you like for Christmas, huh?
Did you fuck my mom?
What?
Did you fuck my mom?
He's just a quirky guy. I liked the performance just because it seemed so clear the actor was trying so hard to just make it work, and I appreciated the enthusiasm, even though every other line was a different accent. But
Yeah. I have another thing to note.
Yes.
Yeah, which is that this was pre-COVID, and I couldn't find anything too specific about it. But apparently, for a while, he was having like weekly comedy shows at one of a theatre production.
Because I saw that he was
called Scotty and Friends.
I saw in some of the information that he's a drama teacher, an improv teacher as well. So that makes sense. I could tell from, obviously this performance is comedic, but you could tell that this guy has a comedy leaning to him. Yeah. Very similar to, I don't mean their performances are the same, but when Jinxo was on this, you could tell that guy is not like a TV actor. He's like a improv guy. And I got that vibe from this guy where like, he's a guy that when I looked up his Facebook page, he does like Santa Claus. Like he does it at like public events and venues. He's very much, I can tell, is like a live performer, but not just a live performer, but he's a guy that does it at strange locations, not just on a stage. He's a guy that's doing it at the mall or at this place, which is a talent all on its own.
Mm-hmm. No boat acting? No
boat acting, not even for Andreas. Yeah, he has yet to act on a boat either. But that I agree. Look, I find his performance just tough to swallow because I could sense an Australian accent there, and whenever I meet fake Australians, there's always telltale signs. Like for instance, you've been calling us I can't even do it. Aussies. No, Aussies. Just Aussies. We make it OZ.
The Z sound, not Ness.
It's always little fun details like that can trip up accents. So when it's fun for me to see fake Australians going, no, like when we watched The Good Place and they had a whole season or two.
Oh God, that was so awful.
And then they had real Australians in the cast as well, and you could tell. I could tell. What? I'm like, you're real. You're saying things correctly.
Barista banana muffin man.
He was a real Australian, but then like the main chick,
and it was just like,
isn't.
you actually sound like you're from Brisbane.
So the Australians strike again.
I have difficulty because as an American who does actually very easily able to tell the difference between a British accent, an Australian accent, and a New Zealand accent, it pisses me off when actors who should know how to do this shit because this is their fucking profession can't get an Australian accent and they make it sound British, or they go too far and they make it sound New Zealand. And I'm like, no.
It's tough. It's a tough accent to nail. I think one of the more recent performances that I think did a good Australian job was Dev Patel in Lion.
Yeah.
He sounded like a Melbourne guy. Yeah. You could tell a little bit that there's a British thing there, but nah, he sounded pretty good. That's one of the more recent entries of like, someone who isn't from here doing a pretty decent portrayal.
But it still wasn't perfect because I believe he was meant to grow up in Tasmania, not in Melbourne.
That's true. He sounded too Melbourne. Tasmania has their own little accent.
Yeah.
But that is the Spotlight section. Donovan Scott still out there working, still doing his bit. Seems more he's gone away from TV and film, at least on IMDb. It's been a couple of years.
His credit was 2017 on IMDb.
I want to know what his experience on Babylon 5 was like. What did he stress about the accent? Did they surprise him with that? Or did he think, I can do this?
Was he doing improv and each take he was doing a different accent?
And Jason Carter's just getting more and more mad.
No, Captain Jack is not the sort to push himself on others when he's not wanted. I was just going to offer to share my dinner with you. You know, brothers of the great space highway, you got to stick together.
We have an important question to ask now.
And answer.
On our binary rating system of yum being bad and yum yum being good.
No half yums are allowed, Mike. You're not allowed to give, a yum and a half.
Yums. Only full yums. It's one or two. Those are your only options.
Good or bad, yum or yum yum.
I think this episode is definitely a yum yum.
Yum yum.
How could I not give it a yum yum?
Yum yum.
This is the embodiment of a yum yum. When I asked who would have said yum yum in the episode, the correct answer is the episode itself. It is vibrating with it all over the place. JMS must have hit a couple too many NyQuils when writing this one and just was having the yum yum spirits within him. But Rachel, what about you? You're the final one.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite episodes. I love how fun this episode is, and it's an easy yum yum from me as well.
Yum yum.
It's time to hear what we, Rachel, will be watching and talking about next time on Babylon 5.
On the next Babylon 5.
Lines of Communication, episode 11 of season 4. Rachel, how does it feel that we're blasting through season 4?
I'm happy.
You're happy about that?
Yeah.
Well, let's see how happy the crew of Babylon 5 are going to be. In Lines of Communication, Sheridan lays the groundwork for the broadcast that will counter ISN disinformation. Meanwhile, which is a word they use a lot in the DVD descriptions, meanwhile, Franklin and Marcus try to win the support of the Mars resistance.
See, Marcus is important enough in that one to get mentioned.
Marcus gets mentioned now. You happy, Mike?
So that's funny though, because like this is the episode I think where Franklin starts fucking his way to the top. I think that's what's happening here.
Lines of Communication is the one, I'm pretty sure, where it ends with Marcus outside their bedroom as they're fucking.
Yeah,
it's 2 episodes in a row of people listening to people fuck.
This one, like, they don't quite get there. Like, they're setting it up, and she's like hunting Franklin.
She wants to go out on a date with him first.
Yeah.
She's not a whore.
Yeah, is the next one the one where we get like, is this how you treat all your ex-lovers?
She's a resistance leader. She's not just going to get down on her knees and start going to town on Franklin immediately. She wants at least a bit of a dinner first.
Oh, I don't feel like she would go down on him at all.
Well, first off, on Gray Sector Pod, we are very sex positive here, so we have no problem with horrors. But
we are as well. In all fairness, you know what I said before about Sheridan being a spanker? Wrong. Franklin's a spanker. That's canon. Next episode.
Oh yeah,
that's canon.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I could see that.
is.
Yeah, absolutely.
You hear a little spank and her go, "Oh, Stephen." So. That is all we have for everyone. You can find us on your social media of choice under YumYumPod or YumYumPodcast. We post on there regularly. You can interact with us on there. You can also email us at yumyumpod@gmail.com. All of this is in the description below, as well as Grey Sector Pod's information. But please, Mike, tell us all where you can be found, where people can find your podcast and what's happening on the pod.
Yeah, Gray Sector Pod on Apple or any of your other podcast services. And of course, we are on Twitter at Gray Sector Pod on Twitter. Sarah runs that one because she is a master of the memes. There's
very
some
funny
really,
memes.
Really fucking funny memes. She comes up with some stuff where I'm like, shit, that's really good. So yeah, go follow us on Twitter and or, subscribe to the show.
Thank you so much for coming on. It was such a pleasure. I hope to have your other hosts on at some point as well, but you and I have been talking to each other a lot. I was like, I got to get Mike on at some point, and then we can get the other 2 on, but I hope to have them on at some point to discuss all of these crazy antics that the Babylon 5 crew get up to, maybe even one where Jakar himself appears, because... no Jakar this episode.
No, but we never get this great line from Jakar ever again. It was the gathering and nowhere else.
Nowhere else does Jakar say the famous Naan farewell. Do you remember this phrase, Mike? Do you remember the famous Naan farewell? Oh. In the gathering, he says to Takashima, and he says it like full, like this is a Naan thing. He smacks his chest and says, "Good eating to you, Commander." And then he walks off. Lieutenant Commander, and he never says anything like that ever again. Nope. He still does the chest thing, but he never says it. But we don't forget.
Nope.
Nor should JMS have forgotten that and the power rings. We never forget the canon that is the gathering. So we will say it on the behalf of the episode that did not. Good eating to you.
Good eating to you.
Good eating to you. Thank you guys for having me.
Mr. Cat.